Hi, this is Country Carrie. I'm running out of daylight and I'm also running out of season. And so I am doing this in my garage. So I just took actually my husband helped me, and he brought in my herb garden from my cold frame. Now, even though it's almost November and we did have a hard freeze already, because I have the cold frame, I should be able to still produce food from it until mid-November is usually what I do. So I only have a couple weeks left to use my cold frame. But I wanted to show you how to harvest your herbs. So out in my big garden in the back, I have chives growing. So I went and grabbed some of those. And what you do if you end up with some that are big like this, of course, you're gonna wanna chop them down and make them into smaller sizes before you even start your drying process. So once I cut these all down to about an inch size and half an inch to an inch, then I will take these and just do something really easy. Put them in a lunch sack, in a brown paper sack, labeled chives. And then I'll keep them in my basement in a dry, cool place, and I'll let them dry. And when I go down there to do laundry, I'll take the bags and I'll shake them and move them around a bit, and then they'll just dry wonderfully. So once they dry, then you can put them in your jars. For example, this is my rosemary from last year. I just put them in a jar. This is a cute little crate that I bought. It has a bunch of my seasonings in it. And I'm ready to harvest some more rosemary. So luckily I have quite a bit left because my rosemary is still quite small. So what I'm gonna do with that is I will just snip it down. Now I'm not pulling it out because I'm actually gonna keep my herb garden in my garage and see what happens and see if I can continue to have it grow. But I will take my rosemary, after I snip it, I'll harvest the whole section. Oh, it smells so good. And I'll stick it in my sack, just like those chives. And fold it up and let it be drying. Now, some of the herbs that I planted worked well and some didn't. So my basils didn't seem to work well. They must be a little more temperamental because in the cold frame it gets cold and then it gets warm. I did sprinkle it every day just with my little watering can, not quite every day, but close. And so if it got really warm in there, it still had moisture. But my basils didn't do really well, but I have rosemary and I have thyme, which is great because last night I just bottled some stew and it called for dried thyme, so there you go. Marjoram did quite well. I have lemongrass and lemon balm. Oh, they smell so good. And I also, see, my basils didn't do too well, but I have cilantro. And I know this is really good to use fresh when you're making salsas, and that was great to have on hand. But I'm also going to try drying some and see how that works out. And I'm assuming that it will be fine. And then if I need to, I could probably even put it in my Italian seasoning mix, stir it in with this and pour it back in. Parsley. My parsley did really well, which is good because my parsley is almost out. I've used it in so many different recipes that I need to restock my parsley. This one's peppermint and it grew well. In fact, at first it didn't, and then it just kind of sprung up. So I'm glad it did well. My sage is great as well. And it's fun to use your fresh grown sage when you're doing Thanksgiving in just, a few weeks. So that's fun to use that. And oregano. And oregano's fun to not only have on hand when you're doing spaghettis, but you can also make oregano oil out of it and use it as far as a flavored oil as well. What you do is you just soak that in your extra virgin olive oil. But anyway, so there's a lot of things that you can do with your herbs, besides just smelling them now. But the thing that's the benefit of having herbs is not only are they nutritional, and some are medicinal, like your peppermint. You have a stomach ache, you have peppermint tea. I had grandkids come up and one of them had a stomach ache, and it was fun to go out and pick some mint leaves and make them a fresh little cup of peppermint tea. But it's good for seasoning your food. We're in an era now where we learned that too much salt is not good for our bodies. And so by growing herbs, drying them yourself, very cost efficient way to start cooking more with herbs. That's one of my goals, is to learn how to cook better and use my herbs more wisely. So not only can you use this drying method when you're harvesting your herbs, like I'm going to go around and just collect all mine now, but you can also collect things from the wild. These are rose hips I gathered, and I'm just waiting for them to dry. After they are dry, then I'll stick them in a jar and seal them. And then, like right now, I'm using some rose hips in my herbal teas in the morning, but this will be preserved for next year, so that will be great. So remember, when you're preserving food, the things that you need to watch out for is moisture, heat, and air. So I'm taking the moisture out of them. I will be taking the air out because I'll be vacuum pack sealing them in a jar, and in the sunlight, if I store them downstairs or in my root cellar, I'll be fine, keeping the nutrients better. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you about herbs. One thing probably I want to make sure and specify to you. So if you are harvesting an herb and there are bad looking leaves on it, pull those off before you dry them. And then after I dry them, well, I guess it could be before or after. You can pull off the leaves and just dry the leaves, or once it's dry, you can pull the leaves off. With my thyme, the leaves are tiny. It was a lot easier just to pull them off once it was dry. So you can just determine that. Remember, country is caring and sharing, and I'm so glad I was able to share how I grow my herbs in an earlier video, and how to harvest them and get them dried and ready for your preservation and use. Have a great evening and a wonderful season, and take care.